welcome, family and friends. Welcome to another episode of the Table Podcast, where faith, community, and purpose, where they come together, where they align to help you live your best life, that abundant life that we so often hear and talk about. And this particular episode is going to be an episode that focuses on legacy, living a legacy. And I have a very special guest with us today, Coach Tim Brown. And we're going to go ahead and just kind of dive into this. So Coach Tim, for those that might be watching that aren't familiar with you, go beyond for us just that title of Coach Tim and being a podcaster with the Be a Baller brand. Tell us a little bit about what is behind that, the Coach Tim.
Well, first, I want to thank you for the opportunity, for being a guest today. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to sit with legacy builders like yourself. I grew up in East Cleveland, Ohio, and I went to East Cleveland Shaw High School, and I was involved in the coach piece. Really comes from being involved in sports.
Okay.
I was involved in sports during high school, and that gave me some opportunities, to experience some things, and also the opportunity to watch some men and women, great teachers, and how they impacted my life. And then I got involved with coaching here in the Columbus area. We started a girls AAU basketball program back in 1984.
Okay.
And nobody's really thinking about girls.
Yeah.
And just to watch how that game has grown, and I had the opportunity to come on staff with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Okay.
And so I've been involved with FCA for a couple of decades now in Columbus. So I've had the opportunity to practice my quote-unquote coaching skills. I'm the camp director for FCA, so we do summer camps, and I do some chapels for teams and all that kind of stuff. So, but now I'm at the stage, we get to this legacy piece, I'm at the stage now where it's about life coaching. You get to a certain age where, I tell people, anybody can teach you the X's and O's.
That's right.
But it's that mental part, It's those values that you get from sports, and that's why I try to coach young people on learn those life lessons that come along with being in sports. So I'm coaching life lessons.
It's funny to hear you say that. I had an experience last night with my youngest son. He had a basketball game, and it didn't turn out the way that he would have liked. Definitely did not play his A game, and he was down a little bit about it naturally, right? But I tried to share with him the value in that, sometimes even in the midst of defeat, there's lessons, right, that we learn from that, and that's not the most defining moment for you because really it's a microcosm of life, right? Because you have ups. You got downs, you have the ebbs, and you have the flows. And really the quality I've come to find for me, the quality of life really comes down to how you handle those, right? So that when things are going well, you're not, that you don't get too high.
Right.
When they're going well, you don't get overinflated in your ego and those kind of things. But also when they don't go well, you don't just go in the dumps, but you take from it what you can, and you kind of move on. And so we're going to dive into this again. The title of this was "Living a Legacy," and it just so happens that that was the name of one of your books here. And I want to go to the forward introduction that was done by Bishop Clark, Timothy Clark here in Columbus, Ohio, First Church of God. And I just want to take this excerpt that he wrote in here, and it says, very often a book contains the heart and mind of a person, but because of his spirit of cooperation and collaboration, Tim Brown has not made this book about him, but he has given us the privilege of listening to voices beyond his own. And I'm gonna go back to your initial comment of when you reach, a certain stage in a season in your life, it then becomes about life coaching. And what I take from that forward introduction is, and I've witnessed this firsthand by my interactions that I've had with you. You have a spirit about yourself that looks to put other people ahead of yourself. Not looking to just make it about me, the person, but what can I do to benefit and help someone else? And I was further, I was also drawn to a remark that you had in your introduction. And when you indicate that at its core, legacy is not just about leaving a mark on the world. It's also about living a life that makes a meaningful difference in the lives of others, and being intentional with the gifts, talents, and resources that God has given us. So I think that helps set the foundation for what we're, going to talk about. But I thought that was a very profound statement about living the life. I'm not going to say that was a transition, but how did you come to that
Well, you really read
evolvement
the
or
book.
definition?
Most people don't read the book. I just give them the book and they just sit on the shelf,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you actually dug into there. But let me go back to
sir.
Bishop Clark's forward.
Yeah.
And my purpose for writing the book is, one thing is that we have to tell our own story. Sometimes people mess our story up.
Right.
We have to tell our own story.
Who knows it better than you?
And so I've been at this podcast for 7 seasons. This will be the 7th season. So I've had over 120 episodes.
Oh, praise God.
So I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, man, you know what? I'm sitting here hearing all this wisdom. These people are sharing all this wisdom, all this knowledge. I can't keep this to myself. I got to share this with others. So what I did, I selected about 25 episodes, and it's 5 different pillars in the book.
Okay.
And then in the podcast, and one is about ministry. So it's men and women from ministry who share building a legacy in ministry. And then there's sports. So you have your Clark Kellogg's in the book. You have your Archie Griffins, your Gene Smiths, in the book. And then it's business, building a legacy in business. Sure. And then there's building a legacy in community service. And then the last piece is building a legacy in education. Yeah. So I took those 5 pillars, and that's how the podcast came about. But the reason I'm so blessed with doing this is that nobody says no. What I found, everybody wants to tell their story. They've been waiting to tell their story, And so I'm just so excited about the stuff that I hear in the studio, and I wanted to put in the book to share with the world so they can hear real stories. See, people see us in our glory.
That's right.
But they don't know the story.
They don't know the behind the scenes.
Boy, there's some stories in here that folks have gone through that I've said in the studio. I'm like, wow, I thought you was always all that. I didn't know you went through some of the same things that I went through, and it resonates with persons because people can resonate to some of their stories are similar to that person's story. So it's an encouragement. It's an encouragement.
Well, and those of you listening, I promise this was not, we didn't rehearse, I didn't share anything with Coach Tim, but that is a good segue. There was one that really struck me. Now, I'm going to be honest, in full disclosure, I didn't read the whole book.
All right. Well, don't feel bad. I'm probably the only one that's read the whole book because I wrote it.
I skimmed through, and there was one story, man, that this got me. And I think this is a message that I can hold a mirror up to myself and look at, I can see that. But I believe there is someone that is watching out there right now that needs to hear this, and that's about Ted Ginn Sr. Man, this was, I'm not even going to go, because we got so much to get to. Yeah. I just got just one glimpse that I want to share, and it talks. He speaks. Ted Ginn Sr., coach at Glenville High School, and he's also got a boys charter school that he has in Cleveland. But long story short, so on his journey to coaching, he says for 10 years, Ginn served as a volunteer coach at Glenville. Peep this out, everybody. I said for 10 years, he was a volunteer coach at Glenville High School, which means that he worked without pay. We live in this microwave society where if I'm not getting the bag
Right.
within 1 year,
Right.
I'm ready to bounce and look to do something else. And that helped shape who he later become and all the blessings that have come his way. But I say there's someone out there that's watching right now, because sometimes we can allow things not happening in the time frames that we want them to be a discouragement for us, right? And sometimes we look at the obstacles, and I've shared this on a previous podcast, something that I believe it was Dr. Frazier, if I remember correctly, that I got this from, that he said, and I've been holding it as a mantra, so to speak, that the obstacles in our life don't block our path. The obstacles in our life are the path. That is how you ultimately get to where you want to go. And if where there are no obstacles, there's no path, because you have to go through some things to get there. I just thought that was so profound, and I was so motivated and encouraged by the journey of Ted Ginn Sr. And I'm sure as I get an opportunity and I read through, I will be motivated and encouraged by many of the life stories that we've heard. So we want to kind of transition in talking about faith. And Coach Tim, can you share with our audience maybe about a season where your faith was tested and how you were able to get through that?
Well, that's a great question. I think my faith was probably one of the biggest tests is when you go to college. After you've grown up in church, going to church every Sunday, and I went to church every Sunday, Sunday school, the whole deal. Back in our day, it didn't matter what you did on Saturday, you was going to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
That's one. And then also back in our day, you had your school clothes, your play clothes, and your church clothes. So now if you got
You're
church
taking
clothes,
me back down memory lane when you say that now.
if you got church clothes, that means you're going to church.
That's
so
right.
my mother took us to church every Sunday. But then when you go to college,
Yeah.
and you have a lot of freedoms, you have a lot of choices. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of took those choices, that now mom's not there, the church is not right down the street, so it becomes one of those things where I think I'm just going, and then it becomes a habit and a routine. And so when you get there, but then you run into that, if you're down there long enough, went to Ohio University, if you're down there long enough, at some point, your faith's going to be tested.
Oh, yeah.
At some point, you're going to hit that wall.
Did you have Halloween weekend back then?
Well, it wasn't as big as it is now.
Okay.
It wasn't as big as it is now, but we had some other weekends, because we were on quarters then.
Okay.
So it wasn't just semesters. So we had all the way through through May and June. But you run into those roadblocks where you really begin to see who God really is, or is God real? Is God real? And that's where my faith was really tested there. Do I stay on this particular path, or do I? The Bible says this: train up a child in the way they will go, and when they're old, they won't depart. And I had some good training. Yeah. Now, I didn't do anything crazy, but I had some good training. I knew where that line was, but I was close to crossing that line.
Yeah.
I got to that line. But that's when I believe in college, that's when my faith was really tested, And there was one young lady, and I'll say her name, Belinda. It's Belinda Payne or Belinda. But Belinda really saved us. We went to school together at Shaw. But she's the one, Tim, you need to come to church. She was in the Gospel Voices of Faith. She was in the church choir, school choir. So I actually went to church one time. She got me down there to hear her sing and whatnot. But then, but when I survived that, when God got me through that, I just pray, Lord, help me to graduate, and I will. The path's still been there, still everybody's a work in progress.
Right.
But it's just a reminder of who God is. If He can get me through that, through that experience, if I can survive that, truly there is a God, who has a plan and a purpose for my life.
My goodness. So, that was, whether you know it or not, that was very inspirational for me, and that gives me some encouragement. I've had 4 sons, 3 of them have already completed that journey as far as going to college. But now we have our last son, who this is his senior year of high school, and he's on track, right,
Yeah.
to go to college and to go away. And that scripture, again, train them up in the way they should go, and when they get older, they won't depart from it. And that encouraged me, because my wife and I have been very diligent about making sure that he was exposed to a relationship with Christ. And as we talk about like legacy and leaving, not only leaving something for others, but living a life that can help others. While I definitely will never say that, and no one is perfect. We're all work in progress. One of the legacies that I've, at least over the last 10 plus years, have tried to ensure that I leave is, my son will always catch me reading my word in the morning before he gets up and goes to school. I get up, and I have my community time, my communion time with Christ before he leaves, and I've always wanted him to see that. I didn't do it so that he would see it. It just so happened that he would see that on his way going out. And I have to take comfort in knowing that, okay, when he's out of our sight and he has freedom to make the choices that that are going to be presented to him, that no matter what he does, that's going to be bedrock for him, right? That is building your house on that solid rock, because life, well, they say life comes at you fast.
Yes, it does.
And you are going to be tempted and challenged, and my wife and I will just have to rely on the fact that, hey, we exposed them, we showed them.
Right.
Maybe we didn't do everything right, but if nothing else, he knew Christ,
Right.
and he had that
So it
relationship.
becomes real for him. And to piggyback on that, I also wrote a book about boys. And one thing I learned from boys, I have 2 sons as well. One thing I learned about boys, and just particularly boys, lessons are not necessarily taught, they're caught. Not necessarily
Give me that
taught.
one more time.
They're not taught, they're caught.
They're caught.
And what I mean by that is, it's not like you sat down and read the Bible with him. He just saw you. He just saw you. And so a lot of time what boys do is they catch it. They're watching us all the time. They're watching us all the time, and they catch us. They're watching how we handle certain situations. And then when they get older, it may not hit them right now, but then it'll hit them a little. Oh, that's what that meant. That's what that meant. But lessons are not with boys. Not like we sit down and have these long, deep conversations with them. I'm just gonna be honest. You got 3 sons, 4 sons, I had 2 boys. And like I said, I had these long conversations with, but I made sure, just like you did, I made sure that I know they're watching.
That's right.
Yeah, but those lessons are not taught. A lot of them in life, they're caught.
And just to even, man, you triggered some things for me, because, and again, I'm saying the exact same thing you just said, which is, it's really not, they're paying attention to what you do. Oh yeah. Not so much what you say.
Them days is over.
And this is, I want to, this is a transparency moment for me, because one of the things in the show that I do like to bring a level of authenticity and transparency in it. So, I mean, I'm 58 now, right? And I'd like to think that I'm a better version of myself than what I was, when I was younger. Now, when I was younger, and with my older sons, they didn't necessarily see me with a Bible. And I thought that there were times that I thought I was hiding things from them, right? Like, and I'll just to be transparent, because this isn't glorifying this. This is just being real, so that the person that is sitting here watching this that might have a similar story can gain and garner some encouragement from. Um, they see me roll a blunt and smoke a joint, and I don't glorify that, and I didn't even do it directly. I thought I was hiding it from them, but kids, they see everything, even when you don't think that they are watching. So those that are watching, that maybe you didn't get it right early on, God in His capacity to forgive and to restore and to rekindle time can go back and reverse some of those things. So there were some things that I did early on with my older kids when I was a younger father that I can look back on now and no, I wouldn't do those things today. But someone needs to hear this to know that that's not the end of the story. Like this isn't the end. That wasn't the end of the story. That was a moment that in a season that I wish didn't occur, but it occurred, and that's part of the life cycle, right? That's the wins and losses, and I'll kind of segue that into this last question regarding faith, Coach Tim, and that's how does faith shape how you personally handle like the wins and losses and the critiques that are out there for you?
My faith is based on my belief in Jesus Christ and God being the Father. I think how it shapes me is that there's a scripture that talks about the audience of one. That whatever I do, I'm doing it not to please man, but unto the Lord.
All right, now.
It's an audience of one, and I want to do, and also pray that whatever I do is in God's will, not my will, but your will be done, and so I pray that prayer, when I go out, wherever I'm going, I want to be led and directed by the Holy Spirit.
Walking by the Spirit.
Yeah, walking by the Spirit, and I stay level-headed because I know it's not about me, it's about glorifying God, and He's my audience, so I'm just trying to please Him. Because if you're trying to please man and trying to please people, you know how it is. They'll let you down, and they'll make sure that they let you down.
Yes, sir.
They won't
Yes,
even
sir.
apologize for it.
You sound like you experienced that a time or two.
Oh yeah, they'll let you down. They'll let you down. So I've learned over the years it's about an audience of one, and so I try to stay level-headed, knowing that whatever I'm doing is not about you. I'm not trying to please you. It's about the Lord and being led by the Spirit.
And a funny thing happens when your mission is just simply about pleasing God and doing His will, that everything else has to fall in line with that. And if it doesn't fall in line with that, then that means it has to.
Right. Yeah.
It's got to go. Wasn't supposed to be there anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
One of my favorite scriptures is Matthew 6:33. It says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God
and His
righteousness." And then the back end of that is that, and all things will be added on to you.
Not
so.
So.
If you seeking God, God. That's something I'm seeking God. I'm seeking His righteousness.
Yeah.
And then the back end, there's a promise in that. You gotta take the word for what it says. It says, like you said, not some things, but all things will be added on to you. But you got to seek God first.
Man, so pleasing God, like I said, just seeking His will, right, for what He designs, what He purposes for us. When we think about community, I know you promote brotherhood and accountability. For our audience, can you maybe just share your views on why men can't do life alone?
We weren't meant to do life alone. God didn't create us to do it. He created us to be in community. That's one. But the other thing is that I think the world has created that. The world has made us think that we don't need another brother, that we macho men, this whole macho deal, that we can do it all by ourselves. And men I had to catch myself, and I'm still working on that.
For sure.
As men, we're created, we have to be fixers. We try to fix every situation, everything, because we're just wired that way to be fixers. And then when we're out there, we don't come to that realization that we need other men until we come to that point in our life where we recognize that we can't do this alone. We can't do this alone. And all that happens with different men in different seasons. But it's important to be in community. I'm in fellowship at First Church. We have a men's fellowship that meets every Tuesday morning. There's about 30, 40 men that come together. I've been with that group. I got introduced to it about 10 years ago. So every Tuesday morning, I'm on the call. We were meeting live.
Are you meeting in person?
We were meeting in person. Then with COVID, now we're virtual.
Okay.
And being virtual, that means we have men from all over. Some guys in New York, guys in Alabama, so guys all over. But the whole thing about that accountability, now I have a community of men who, I think accountability is important, but it's also just somebody to talk to. See, men need to talk to men. You know, I love having men conversations. You know, and not just about sports.
Right.
You know, it's about life. And then all of us go through different stages in life. So you see how certain men, there's a lot of older men in this group, so you get to see how they handle certain things in certain situations, you know, at their age or whatnot. So all that comes into play, you know, all that comes into play. But no, we were created for community, but the world, and that's why we have to be careful with how we teach young boys, you know, because that they're not all, I tell them, guys, smile sometimes, man. You don't have to be so hard. You know, life is not that hard. You know, smile, you know. Smile, then you'll draw people to you.
That's right.
You know, you'll draw, and you're going to need those people.
Absolutely.
You're going to need them. You're going to need them. But accountability is so important in the community.
On a previous episode, I had my brothers from Men of Courage, right, which is a men's ministry group. And one of the unique things about it is that we come from different churches, which we know sometimes even in the church, sometimes the church can be some of the most divisive groups that there are. But on that podcast, I brought up the fact that I've evolved in understanding that a man really has three different families. One is the family that he's born into, his mother, father, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins. The family that he creates with his spouse, right, and their children. And then the brotherhood that he has to have, because as you mentioned, man really needs that camaraderie with another. I mean, and the you know, you can go to the word for that. You know, that iron sharpens iron is one man sharpens another. And like even in our Men of Courage group, like we allow ourselves to be vulnerable to one another, and an amazing thing happens is that when you share something that is of a very personal nature, it encourages others to feel comfortable, like, oh, I can let my guard down. Like I said, I don't have to be, you know, that tough guy that is able to handle all this. Like, and I don't know about you, Coach Tim, maybe this is just, you know, for me, I find the as I continue to mature, I guess I get a little bit more emotional about about things, and I find myself, you know, tearing up. You know, sometimes, and I'll have to tell my wife, no, it's just my allergies. This, you know, this. She's like, what you tearing up over there?
That's life. That's life, because we can relate. We can understand what that person's going through.
Yeah,
you know, we can feel it a little differently. You know.
That's
you know,
right.
Back when younger, like, you know, toughen up,
suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up. But we as we mature, we understand that that's a real emotion, you know, and it's okay.
Coach Tim, what breaks your heart when you look at men today?
The thing that really breaks my heart is the fatherlessness, you know, single mothers. That really, quote unquote single mothers, that really breaks my heart. When you see these young men, it's hard for a mother, and I'm a product of that. You know, I know my mother with a stepfather, but basically it was just her raising us, and I saw how hard that is, you know, on her. That really breaks my heart. But the other side of that is, so that's one piece. But the joy in men,
I was going to ask.
the joy in men is seeing men stand in the gap. It's seeing men step up. And that's why I love what I do with coaches. Yeah. You know, watching coaches, how they become those father figures. You know, for me, it was Coach Jim Brown. My name is Tim Brown. He's Jim Brown. So I'm at Shaw High School, and everybody thought I was his son. and he never said I wasn't his son.
Right.
You know?
And you didn't deny it.
No way I denied. It's the big football coach, you know. But
Yeah.
now I have a dad. You know,
Yeah.
I have a dad. But the joy of that is you got the single mothers on one hand, but then you have the men who step in. And I had a conversation with Mr. Brown about how did we get in relation? Why was I the one? You know. He said, Tim, your mother had a conversation with me, and she told me that, Mr. Brown, I see my son going the wrong way. Can you kind of take him under your wing and mentor him, or just be there for him? You know, kind of fill in that gap. And I never knew that story till later on. But the joy of that is watching men stand in the gap. To
And
fill that void.
That gives some hope. That,
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's good. You know, as I was trying to prepare some questions to ask regarding that, and I reversed it on myself. You know, what is it that breaks my heart? And certainly your response is something that resonates with me personally. But I answered that as wasted potential, because I see so many brothers that are so gifted, so talented. I mean, you know, that have twice the amount of gifts that I have. I mean, you know, God, He gifts us all in different ways. He's not a cookie cutter God. He doesn't, you know, just make us all the exact same. But for me, it's like it's wasted potential. And I guess the thing that gives me hope is platforms like this, podcasts like you that you have, that can really challenge men to take a look at themselves, but also to be inspired and to also love themselves, and to be able to have, you know, I think sometimes, Tim, we have to be able to give ourselves some grace.
Yes.
And you know, you talked about smiling. It's something contagious about that, right? You know, I mean, it's hard to scowl at someone if they're smiling and be kind. Even if you started out that way, you're going to, you know, you'll eventually have to align with that, right? And so, you know, my hope is that someone that is watching out there that's been on the edge, maybe they've just felt as though, hey, life has beat me up, you know, be it the choices that I made and the consequences that resulted from it, you know, whether I had to spend 10 years in the penitentiary because, you know, actions, or I lost my family because of this, or whatever the scenario is, that we can give ourselves some grace, and that turning to God, I think a lot of times people hear that and they just think, oh, well, it's just the instant cure-all. And that's not how it necessarily works, because that growth and that maturing, it has to come from within. It has to come from the heart. When we think about our purpose, you know, and I think you mentioned it earlier, and I know it's, I regularly reference, I think it's Jeremiah 29 and 11, where God speaks to the prophet Jeremiah, for I know the plans that I have for you, not to harm you, but to prosper you and to give you a good life. A lot of us can spin our wheels not really knowing what it is we were here to even do. What was that turning point for you, Coach Tim, where it became clear, hey, this coaching, it's more than just a job, as you mentioned. It's a life thing. When and how did that transition kind of happen for you?
I'm going to set up this way. The Bible says this: all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose.
Romans 8 and 28.
And so that time for me was in the 6th grade when Mr. Clayton Burrows walked through that door to be our teacher. It was in January. It was January, my 6th grade year. We had ran, there was an older white gentleman, Mr. Fontaine. We had ran him out the room, so he didn't come back. Mr. Burrows walks in, fresh out of Wilberforce University, you know, so he on fire, young guy, you know. And so he comes in and he just laid down the law that ain't no more playing around, that we're going to be excellent, you know, that we're going to do this thing, we're going to be successful. And I bought into that. And then I realized from that moment, you know, and I took a while to manifest. I went through some different things to get there, but I got the opportunity to become a fifth grade boys teacher, all boys at Sunshine Christian Academy. So I taught fifth grade, all boys, for 6 years. I had a good time. We had no girls, no distractions, you know, it's just boys, just boys. My classroom, we learned, I mean, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But my purpose was started back then watching Mr. Burroughs. So everything that I did and emulating that classroom was from Mr. Burroughs and about being excellent. So my purpose, I know my purpose is young men, you know, as boys, is raising boys. The owner of Chick-fil-A, founder of Chick-fil-A, he said this. He said, it's better to build the boys than men. MEND, men.
Wow.
We spend a lot of time and money on fixing men. If we would back up and build those boys,
Right.
you know, instead of mending men on the back end. And so that's been my purpose is building boys, you know, and that happened when Mr. Burroughs walked through that door. And I'm still in communication with him today.
Yeah.
You know, when he walked through that door in 6th grade, when I saw him, I saw a man. Every boy, at some point in life, you see a man about 12, 13 years old, you see it and you say, I want to be just like him. You know, you see that modesty, I want to be just like him. And you spend the rest of your life trying to be like him. And I'm still trying to catch up Mr. Burroughs. He's still cool.
Yeah.
He drove this green Cougar every day, you know, back in the day. So every time I walked from my home to Chambers Elementary School, I know it's going to be a good day because Mr. Burroughs is here. You know, so I want to be that for others. I want to be that for these young men. I want to be that model for them, you know, that they can see what life looks like on this end.
Yeah.
You know, that you just keep plugging away. You can get there. So that's my purpose. And in 6th grade, I knew that was my purpose. You know, it took a while to get there, but
Yeah.
I knew that's what God called me to do.
Well, our interaction, and I don't remember all the exact details in the time frames, but our paths crossed, right? And I believe it was at Champion Middle School,
Yeah, it was a boys'
right?
group.
And we had a group of
Yep.
of young men, and you know, went there and volunteered some time. And while at that stage, I was well beyond the age of 12 and 13.
Right.
My interaction with you and watching your movements, and when I say your movements, how you carried yourself, right? The respect that you commanded, you know, but without being overbearing, how the kids would naturally gravitate to you. You know, that planted, for me at that season of my life, that gave me something to model. That gave me something to aspire to, even at, like I said, a more advanced, you know, age than that. So I guess the point of that is that you never really stop being encouraged and motivated. So I appreciate that, you know, from you, and I best believe there are some things that you exhibit that I look to try to embody even within myself. And one of them, like I said, it's you very few people that I've encountered in my life, you being one of them. Another spiritual mentor that I had, Pastor Dan Harris and John Dooley, who have evangelist John Dooley. They've gone on to be with the Lord, but they were men much like yourself that walked with grace, that were men of God, right? You know, and I had to evolve my thinking on what real manliness was. You know, I grew up in an era where, you know, what you identified a man being was somebody that could fight, you know what I mean, or could drink more than their share of liquor, or sleep with these number of women. But as you get older and you realize that's not manliness. You know, manliness is submitting to his godship, you know, to his lordship, right, and allowing him to work through you where you put the needs of others behind you, where you can be with the crowd, but you don't have to move with the crowd. You know, when that crowd goes in the wrong direction, you can still take that narrow pathway. And so I appreciate that from you. And I would ask you, what encouragement would you give or share with maybe a young man or man that's listening, middle-aged man that's listening now, to discover who they are kind of at their core and to find their purpose? Is there any piece of advice or direction that you might give?
My word now for young men or just people, period, is be uncommon. Be okay with being uncommon. You know, I've written several books about being uncommon. That boys' book is about living uncommon in a common world. You know, and then I have a book about uncommon athletes. So my word is just to be uncommon and be okay with being uncommon. It's okay not to be on that like everybody else. You know, once you find out who you are, you know, your purpose is, you know, what God's called you to be, it's going to be uncommon because everybody's path is different.
Right.
You know, there's only one Tim Brown.
That's it.
I tell them guys, you can't be like me. There's only one Tim Brown. You know, I want you to be yourself. Now, I'm hopefully I deposit something inside of you. You know, but you have to be you. You have to be uncommon. So I think in this day and age, everybody's on the phone with Instagram and whatever the new trends are, whatever they're doing on TikTok. You know, that's what we're gonna do. No, you know, you want to be uncommon. There will be something. What's different about you?
What makes you stand out?
Yeah, what makes you stand out? What's that uncommon thing? And so you have to find that for you, and it's in you. It's in you. It's in you. You have to embrace it. You have to embrace it. And then my other word, especially for young people up as well, is be an MVP. An MVP is not most valuable player. MVP is my vision plan. See, when you have a vision, it's going to happen. When I have vision to write books, I'm going to write books. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care if nobody reads. I'm writing a book.
Right.
You know?
That's right.
You know, because that's my plan. That's my plan. That's my vision plan. That's my vision plan. Example, I had a boy over at Westerville North High School. So I'm doing a group there. He's mentoring with me, Nate. He wants to be a pilot. He's from Africa, from the continent of Africa. He hasn't been home in 15 years or so. So he wants to be a pilot. So he can fly, he can go home, you know.
That's
makes
sense.
But his main deal is he wants to be a pilot so he can fly other people home that are like him. So this is his vision.
That's
now.
his purpose.
This is his vision. So he goes to, he's at Ohio University. He's a freshman there. He got a nice scholarship, you know, aviation program. You know, Scott, it costs an extra $20,000 a year for the aviation program. You know, for the flights and all that kind of stuff. You got to pay a separate program.
Right.
So that's another $20,000 a year. So a young fella he need to find $80,000 in them 4 years at OU. So I'm looking at him, I'm almost crying, man. I don't know how you gonna do all that. He said, Mr. Brown, don't worry about it. You know, if I got to work 4 or 5 jobs, I work for. Every time I call him, he working. He at work. But it's his vision. Right. So it's gonna happen. So I want to encourage the audience that stick to what God, your purpose and your vision, you know, and don't worry, but stick to it. If God has a plan for it, it's just God's plan, it's your plan. He'll make a way. He'll make a way. But stick to your vision. Be an MVP. Have a vision, your vision plan. Make it work. And it's going to be uncommon. Everybody don't understand. I don't understand, you know, why you going to come up with $20,000, you know, to fly a plane, you know?
That's right.
And I don't understand why it costs that much, to be honest. Yeah. But Nate ain't worried about it. Because he's going to make it happen. So I would say be uncommon and be an MVP.
Tim, I want to close out just on this. What do you want to be said about your legacy that you leave?
Wow, that's powerful. That's a great question. Alex, I've done this podcast 7 seasons and 100-something episodes, and I'm always borrowing stuff from others that fit me.
Right.
You know, that fit me. There's a couple things that I can't take credit for it, but from a legacy standpoint, it's not what you leave behind, it's what you leave inside somebody. It's what you leave inside of them, you know. So I had to borrow that one, you know, so work, because after I'm in contact with someone, I want to make sure that they may not remember me physically, but what did I leave inside of them? Right. what I leave inside them. And the other thing is this, and this is really what I look at legacy as being for me, is especially as a man, and Pastor Forbes shared this, as a man, a family man, I want to make sure I get that baton to the next generation. I want to make sure I run my leg of the race and I get that baton.
Yes, sir.
People who run track, they understand track. And the worst
know it
thing
very
is,
well.
worst thing is when that
fumbles,
baton
yeah.
drops and you
That's
hear
right.
that sound on the track.
Clinking. I've
You hear
heard
that
it.
clink. You heard that clink. You heard that clink. So my legacy is I want to live where I can get, where I want to get that baton to my son TJ first, and then TJ will get it to Nathan, who's the youngest boy. He'll get it to him, and then Nathan will get it to, we just had a grandson, Austin.
My God.
So he'll get it to Austin. Then Austin will get that baton to the next one. So
That's
it's
right.
about not dropping that baton and getting that, make sure I got to run my race right. I got to run it right.
That's right.
So I can get it to the next generation, because I don't want to drop that baton. And the other thing in legacy is this, when you're in a relay race, you know it's different lanes. So it's a stagger.
That's right.
It's a stagger. And that's what we as men have to understand. We don't all start the same.
My God.
All we got to look is our history. February's coming up, Black History Month. You look at our history, this was a staggered start for us in America now. Come on, bro. This was a staggered start.
You mean we wasn't all at the same starting
bro.
point?
This is a staggered
Oh,
start.
okay.
We probably was in lane 10. Our stagger was so far ahead, But we had done, it's just a staggered start.
That's right.
And look at where we are now.
Yeah.
And that's what I want my legacy to be. So people can look at me,
Yes, sir.
a single mother from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who raised 4 kids. Had a stepdad, but she primarily raised 4 kids. So and I took that baton, and I was the first one in my family to go to college. I went to Ohio University, started that relay race. Now, my brother Ken, he came right after me. He went to Ohio University. My sister Cookie, she went to Ohio University. So just
Legacy
passing
building.
that baton,
That's it.
just passing that baton, just that legacy. That's what I want people. But the other piece of that is I want people to understand if I can do it, they can do it.
That's right.
I had 3 college graduates. My brother has 2 children, they've graduated from college. My sister Cookie, Jalen just graduated from college, All that started.
That's right.
All that started right here. All that started. I go back to people can only be what they can see.
That's it.
When I'm in college and they coming down there, Sibs weekend, they seeing all that.
I want to do that.
Come on, man.
That's
Come
it.
on, man. I want this.
Yeah.
The kids, they see the pictures.
That's
and
right.
all that. My daughter got me good. Back in college, I didn't realize that they rank you in college.
Oh yeah.
Rank.
I'm familiar with that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
My baby girl found my diploma, found my transcripts.
What number were you, Coach Tim?
Come on. It was about 2,000 class. I'm 1,098.
Hey, but
It was that bad, bro.
but you
made
ma-
this up.
but you made it.
That's where that faith comes in God.
But you
It's a
made it.
legacy. And so
Yes, sir.
It's the legacy. So
Yes, sir.
I always say this legacy is just what you leave inside someone.
Yeah.
And then make sure you get that baton
Well,
to the next generation.
Coach Tim, you might have been 1,098, but you're number 1 in my book.
Amen. I appreciate
My brother.
that, man.
God bless you, man.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Now give me my rope. My